Hey everybody, let's continue talking about grammar, all right? When last we spoke, we were looking at participial phrases. And well, first just the concept of participles, and then we went into participial phrases and how they work. Today we're going to discuss absolute phrases. And what is interesting about absolute phrases is they bear a lot of resemblance to participial phrases. However, it's essentially, in the simplest of terms, it's like we're reversing the order and just placing the noun first. Because as you know, participles modify nouns. And in our English-speaking culture, typically the adjective comes before the noun. Okay. Whereas, I have a lot of Spanish-speaking students, and the adjective comes after the noun. Well, this is essentially more akin to that Spanish Spanish speakers' construction that they're used to. All right. So let's look at how this begins, or how this works. All right. Now, typically, I've scoured the entire YouTube world for videos that I think can really help students understand. Before I started making my own videos, I would look around and I would try to find videos to bring in to say, okay, I've addressed you in the front of the class as best I can. I've run different scenarios on the board. Maybe if you can look at this person's video, this might even help you more. Or maybe that person says something in a certain way that just makes it all click for you that I was not able to do standing in front of the class. And I can find a lot of videos like that for a lot of different grammatical structures, except for the absolute phrase. It seems difficult to understand. Again, I was never really familiar with it until the grammar guru that I believe works miracles, Harry Noden, put it in the most simplest of terms. And the way he says it is he just says it's a noun. It begins with a noun. And then after that comes the ing word. It's the noun plus ing. In its most simplest forms, that's what it would look like. And if you think about it, noun plus ing, well, have the noun word beginning and then the ing word afterward. But in the normal English construction, you would have the ing first and then the noun. Running water, if you remember that. Okay, whispering wind. This would be wind whispering through the trees, etc. It's not a sentence because that doesn't make sense on its own. If I just were to say to someone, wind whispering through the trees, that doesn't work on its own. Okay, so let's take a look at this a little bit closer. All right, let's use our the car chugged into the parking lot, of course. Okay. All right. The car chugged into the parking lot. Well, last time when we had participial phrases, we said, dragging its bumper behind it. Let's just put dragging its bumper, comma, the car chugged into the parking lot. That begins with the ing, so this is a participle. Okay? Let's take essentially this, but let's kind of flip that order. To say bumper dragging the car chugged into the parking lot. All right? We could say, tailpipe, smoking, the car chugged into the parking lot. Tires deflating the car chugged into the parking lot. The lead in these are the nouns. Oops. Okay. Noun, noun, noun. The following are those INGs, because essentially it's a dragging bumper. It's a smoking tailpipe. It's these are deflating tires. Flipping its order around and letting that noun lead towards bumper dragging, the car chugged into the parking lot. Tailpipe smoking, the car chugged into the parking lot. Tires deflating, the car chugged into the parking lot. Or we can just add them all up. Bumper dragging, tailpipe smoking, tires deflating, the car chugged into the parking lot. It doesn't even sound like that car was roadworthy to begin with. One probably should not be driving a car under such duress down the street, hoping that sounds dangerous, all right? But this is its structure in essence. So what absolute phrases do, all right, I made it clear, hopefully, in the participial phrase video, that the participial phrase dragging its bumper modifies car. The definition of these is that it modifies the entire sentence, okay? And just like the stylistic points that one can, get from this, all right, let's look at this. Bumper dragging. So we have the one that's here, bumper dragging. The car chugged into the parking lot. All right. Or we could have the car bumper dragging chugged into the parking lot. Or the car chugged into the parking lot. Its bumper dragging. All right. Now, do you see? Do you notice that I put this little thing in there? That's okay. This is a possessive pronoun. All right. I could have put, its bumper dragging, the car chugged into the parking lot, or the car, its bumper dragging. I know that doesn't begin with a noun, but we can add some modifiers there. It's rusty old bumper dragging. That would still be okay. I want you to be aware of that. But bumper dragging, it leads here. The car chugged into the parking lot. It interrupts down here, the car, bumper dragging, chugged into the parking lot. And it concludes down here, the car chugged into the parking lot, its bumper dragging. It doesn't matter. You get the versatility, the same versatility that you get with the participial phrase works here. All right. I would like to point something out to you, because as we mentioned in the prior video with participial phrases, there are present participles and past participles. And so I don't want you to be totally confused with this ing and think ing only. There are options where it comes past. Let me show you, let me contrast a little bit. I've changed from our car that chugs. The oak tree stands in our yard. let's look at a present one. It's long branches stretching to the sky. Its tall branches stretching to the sky, the oak tree stands in our yard. Or the oak tree, its long branches stretching to the sky, stands in our yard. Or the oak tree stands in our yard, its long branches stretching to the sky. Okay? Either way. But you see, this is present tense. Now, what if, though, I said its thick branches covered in icicles. Okay? Its thick branches covered in icicles, the oak tree stands in our yard. Or maybe if we have past tense, we might want to change it to stood. Okay? Its thick branches covered in icicles, the oak tree stood in our yard. We could just say branches covered in icicles. Whatever, we're in charge. Okay? Or the oak tree, its thick branches covered in icicles, stood in our yard. Or the oak tree stood in our yard, its thick branches covered in icicles. All right? And I want you to notice this is ED in this case. All right? Now, if one were to look at these, one would think, wait, we have a noun and a verb form. Isn't that a sentence? Well, no, it's not. This is not a complete thought. If it said its long branches are stretching to the sky, then we would have a sentence, okay? But as it is, this right here is not a verb, okay? Not a verb. Okay? Its thick branches covered in icicles, not a verb. This is different than if we had written, its long branches are stretching to the sky. Or its long branches are covered in icicles. Okay? Then we'd have branches, and are stretching would be the verb phrase here, and branches are covered would be the verb phrase here, or were covered, or whatever, okay? But this is not here. So we cannot confuse a structure like this with a structure like this, because they are not the same. In this case, this is the absolute phrase. Because this is an absolute phrase, this is not a verb. This is never, this basically we're saying these are, covered branches. These are stretching branches. All right? We've just reversed that order and put the noun first. All right? Here, if we were to leave this as are, these would be sentences, because this would be a verb. But in this case, the way it is structured, without that are there as a helping verb, this does not make sense as a complete thought on its own, with the helping verb down here, it does make sense and can stand alone as a complete thought. Absolute phrase versus sentence. So I have 3 sentences up here that I would like for us to take a look at. And I'd like for us to add some absolute phrases too. We have, the student slept in class. The team finally won a championship. And for us in the year 2020, we now know who the president is. Okay. So, and of course at the time of writing this, we have no idea. But what I'd like for us to do is I'd like for us to add some absolute phrases to these, I should say, all right? The student slept in class. So when I'm thinking of a student sleeping in class, some of the images that come to me are, student with his head down on the desk, maybe even a student drooling a little bit on the desk. That's happened. But what I'm thinking of right now is snoring. All right, with snores. The sound of his snores echoing through the room, the student slept in class. Or the student, the sound of his snores echoing through the room, slept in class. Or the student slept in class, the sound of his echoes echoing through the room. All right? So now we have the team finally won a championship. All right? I want you to notice we have sound, that's the noun here. Echoing, that's the participle. And it's present. Let's do this one here, but let's make it past. All right? Victory. Clinched. Victory clinched by a last-minute shot. The team finally won a championship. Or the team, it's victory clinched by a last-minute shot. Well, I can say this. It's kind of like that better. It's victory clinched by a last-minute shot. The team finally won a championship. Or the team, it's victory clinched by a last-minute shot, finally won a championship. Or the team finally won a championship. It's victory clinched by a last-minute shot. All right? Victory being the noun here, clinched is the participle. All right? We now know who the president is. All the votes finally counted. We now know who the president is. Votes is our noun. Counted is our participle, past participle. Okay, as this one was past. All right? And so there you have it, folks. The structure is that we have the noun leading. Now, I don't mean the noun leading as it is first, because you can see there's an article here. Okay? There's a possessive pronoun here. All right? Got this with the article here and pronoun here, okay? But we do have the same structure where the noun is the focus, and these are now counted votes. This is a clinched victory. This is echoing sound, all right? And so what we've kind of done is, like I said earlier, that structure that my Spanish-speaking students are used to, with the noun leading and the participle, the descriptive word, coming after it, all right? So, a lot of times students might get these confused with the participles, but you remember the participial phrases lead with that ing or that verb form, whereas this one leads with a noun and gets to that descriptive or modifying term that is still a verb form, but a modifying term comes thereafter. I hope this makes sense, and we will practice it. But that's the absolute phrase. See you around.